They once ruled red carpets, magazine covers, and TV screens with faces everyone recognized. Today, some of these stars look almost entirely different. In a Hollywood culture obsessed with youth and flawlessness, a handful of celebrities pushed cosmetic enhancements beyond the point of return, trading their natural charm for dramatic and sometimes unsettling transformations. For fans who remember their early days, the contrast is a striking reminder that even fame can't protect anyone from aging under constant scrutiny. Which of these stunning makeovers will surprise you the most? Stay tuned, you won't believe who's coming next. Julia Tarasevich was once admired for her timeless beauty, a Russian model whose features looked as if they'd been sculpted from stone. Crowned in national competitions and praised for her classic elegance, she never wanted dramatic changes, just a subtle way to preserve the youthful glow she cherished. But what began as a simple wish spiraled into a life-changing ordeal. At 38, Julia checked into a private clinic, placing her trust in experienced surgeons for what should have been routine work: a facelift, eyelid surgery, and light liposuction. Everything seemed normal until she opened her eyes to a face she barely recognized. Her features were swollen, uneven, and painfully rigid. Worst of all, she couldn't fully close her eyes, not even to sleep. What was meant to be a minor enhancement turned into a medical and emotional nightmare. Julia filed a lawsuit against two doctors, Dr. Andrei Kov and Dr. Omar K., accusing them of life-altering negligence. They argued her complications were caused by a rare autoimmune disorder called scleroderma, a condition Julia firmly maintains she never had. Despite undergoing numerous corrective treatments, her appearance has never completely returned. Today, Julia refuses to stay silent. She speaks openly, warning others about the hidden risks behind cosmetic perfection. Her journey reminds millions that beauty isn't just about looks. It's about trust, identity, and the comfort of closing your eyes at night without fear. Lin May. In the 1970s, her silhouette dominated Mexico's brightest stages. Lin May, born Lilia Guadalupe Mendiola Mayares, wasn't just an entertainer, she was a cultural symbol. With magnetic charm and striking natural beauty, she captivated audiences from Acapulco to Buenos Aires. Yet behind the lights, the makeup, and the roaring applause, a quiet insecurity always lingered. It wasn't vanity that sent Lin to the operating table, but a desire to correct a slight facial asymmetry, a detail no one else noticed yet impossible for her to forget. Pressured by relentless media scrutiny and the fear of aging in an industry obsessed with youth, she placed her trust in the wrong person. The so-called expert wasn't even a licensed surgeon, and what he injected wasn't medical filler at all, but baby oil, a substance never intended for human use. The consequences were devastating. Her skin inflamed, tissues hardened, and the face the public once admired began to change in painful, unexpected ways. Every attempt to fix the damage only made things worse. The media grew harsh, splashing unflattering photos across tabloids and turning her suffering into cruel punchlines. But Lin refused to fade away. Now in her 70s, she still performs, speaks openly, and even laughs about her past. She uses her experience as a warning about the dangers of unqualified procedures and the high cost of chasing perfection in a world terrified of aging. For Lin May, beauty no longer comes from fame or features, but from resilience, dignity, and choosing to accept oneself. Bryan never chased fame or the illusion of eternal youth. She simply wanted to feel comfortable in her own skin again. At 47, like many women her age, she hoped to smooth a few lines and gently refresh her appearance. What began as a small act of self-care, however, spiraled into a devastating medical crisis. In 2009, Carol received a cosmetic filler procedure that promised quick, natural-looking results. What she didn't know was that the substance injected into her face contained liquid silicone, a material banned from facial use for years. At first, everything appeared normal, but within weeks, her face began to swell, harden, and distort into something unrecognizable. Friends looked away. Strangers stared. Eventually, she stopped going out entirely. Only her daughter was allowed to see her. Doctors attempted to undo the damage, yet every intervention made her pain worse. Years of grueling treatments followed until a major craniofacial surgery at UCLA in 2013 finally offered hope. The operation saved her life, but injured her optic nerve, leaving her blind in one eye. Although reconstruction restored part of her face, the emotional wounds ran far deeper. Today, Bryan has transformed her trauma into purpose. Through public speaking documentaries and her own foundation, she educates others about the dangers of unregulated cosmetic procedures. Her message is clear and urgent. Ask questions, know your provider, and never sacrifice safety in the name of beauty, because a single injection can change far more than your reflection. Pete Burns. Long before he became a symbol of extreme transformation, Pete Burns was a pop sensation. In the 1980s, he shot up the charts with Dead or Alive and their iconic hit You Spin Me Round Like a Record. Bold, androgynous, and impossible to overlook, he redefined what a star could be. But beneath the glam and the spotlight, Pete carried a different dream. He wanted to turn himself into living art. It started with a broken nose and one corrective operation. That single surgery opened the door to an obsession. Over the years, he endured hundreds of procedures, fillers, implants, reconstructions, some elective, others forced by painful complications. He wasn't trying to look younger, he was trying to look like the version of himself he imagined, even if that meant rebuilding his face again and again. Pete challenged every boundary, gender, beauty, identity. To him, his reflection wasn't about vanity. It was self-expression pushed to the edge. But the cost was immense: recurring infections, botched corrections, and years of chronic pain that followed him everywhere. Even when doctors begged him to stop, he couldn't. For Pete, stopping meant giving up the art he believed he had become. He passed away in 2016 at 57, yet his imprint remains. Today, Pete Burns is remembered not only as a singer, but as a cultural statement, fearless, defiant, and unapologetically himself. His legacy continues to pose a haunting question: where does identity end and obsession begin? Dennis Avner, known globally as Stalking Cat, never pursued fame or vanity. His transformation came from belief. A former Navy veteran and computer technician who embraced his Huron and Lakota heritage, Dennis felt he wasn't entirely human, but something closer to a tiger. After speaking with a spiritual advisor in his early 20s, he believed he had a calling to make his outer appearance match his inner identity, his totem animal. Over the years, he underwent more than a dozen body modifications to fulfill that vision, splitting his upper lip, reshaping his nose, altering his ears, adding subdermal implants, and covering his face with detailed tiger-striped tattoos. He even wore fangs, whiskers, and a mechanical tail. While these changes appeared extreme to others, each one held deep spiritual meaning for him, a way to bring body and spirit into alignment. Television eventually took notice. Dennis appeared on Ripley's Believe It or Not and Larry King Live, earning a Guinness World Record for his animal-inspired transformation. Yet off-camera, he lived quietly, working in IT and seeking peace in close-knit communities. In 2012, Dennis Avner passed away under uncertain circumstances. Today, his story remains not as a spectacle, but as a meditation on identity and self-acceptance. Stalking Cat pushed the boundaries of what society considers normal, asking a profound question: who gets to decide what it truly means to be human? Once admired, desired, and envied, Jocelyn Wildenstein embodied the pinnacle of New York high society. Nicknamed the Bride of Art, she lived in a world of extraordinary wealth, sprawling mansions, priceless paintings, and glittering diamonds. Married to billionaire art dealer Alec Wildenstein, she seemed almost untouchable. Yet beneath the glamour grew an obsession with preserving youth that would define and ultimately transform her legacy. It began harmlessly, a few cosmetic enhancements, nothing surprising among the elite, but each new procedure took her further from her original features. The mirror became both a fascination and a threat. Over the years, her evolving appearance sparked relentless tabloid headlines that labeled her the Catwoman. What started as gentle refinement slowly turned into fixation, and the world watched as her face became a symbol of excess and reinvention. Her marriage collapsed in 1999, leading to a long public divorce and a steep financial decline. By 2018, the woman once famed for extravagant spending had filed for bankruptcy. Yet Jocelyn never vanished. In 2022, she resurfaced alongside makeup artist Alexis Stone, choosing to engage with public curiosity instead of retreating from it. Now in her 80s and living quietly in New York with her longtime partner designer Lloyd Klein, she remains both an enigma and a cautionary tale. A reminder that the pursuit of beauty, when pushed too far, can blur the line between self-expression and self-erasure. Kenny Rogers, the country music icon, was beloved for his rugged charm and unmistakable voice, a man whose weathered features reflected decades spent on the road. Fans admired him for his authenticity, his natural warmth, and the quiet strength that echoed through every song he sang. But in 2006, a personal choice changed the way the world viewed him. Rogers underwent several cosmetic procedures, including eyelid surgery, intended to give him a more refreshed look. Instead, the results left him deeply dissatisfied. His surgeon lifted the outer corners of his eyes too far, creating a permanently surprised expression. The widened space between his eyelids and brows made his face feel unfamiliar, softening the masculine, gentle character fans had always associated with him. In later interviews, Rogers spoke openly about his regret, admitting, "I wish I hadn't done it." He often reflected on how vanity, aging, and public expectations can pressure even the most grounded people into decisions they eventually regret. Still, he refused to let that misstep define his identity or career. In his final years, Kenny devoted himself to family philanthropy and the music that shaped his life, leaving behind a legacy far greater than any cosmetic mistake. When he passed in 2020, fans didn't remember the altered features. They remembered the soulful storyteller who taught the world when to hold 'em, when to fold 'em, and how to live with lasting grace. Daryl Hannah, the ethereal mermaid from Splash, was one of the most captivating actresses of the 1980s. With her bright blue eyes, sunlit hair, and effortless all-American charm, she became an emblem of natural beauty and innocence. But as the years passed, that timeless look began to shift. Like many Hollywood stars facing pressure to stay youthful, Hannah was widely rumored to have turned to cosmetic enhancements. What may have started with subtle Botox and fillers appeared over time to become more noticeable. Her features grew increasingly taut, her cheeks looked unusually full, and her lips appeared significantly plumper. Fans and critics alike began to mourn the delicate balance that once made her beauty so memorable. Hannah has repeatedly denied undergoing plastic surgery, insisting her appearance simply reflects the natural process of aging. Still, side-by-side photos have fueled speculation, leaving many longtime admirers feeling conflicted and saddened. Today, she spends far less time in the Hollywood spotlight, choosing instead a quieter life devoted to environmental activism alongside her husband, musician Neil Young. Yet for many, the once enchanted mermaid remains a poignant reminder of how the pursuit of eternal youth can sometimes overshadow the magic of natural beauty. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. See you in the next one.